Good afternoon and welcome to what is our fourth webinar in our Star2M webinar series. My name is Michael Walker and I look after global sales, marketing and digital for the Sealight, Avlight and Star2M group of companies. Today's a fantastic topic as we dive a little further into Star2M and what makes it tick, but we really shine a light now and focus on how we integrate our system into your system, but more importantly, shine a light on the carriage, the reliability, the networks that underpins the Star2M system. I'd like to give a really warm welcome today to Mr. Tim Last. Tim is the VP and General Manager of IoT line of business and aviation at Iridium. I was fortunate enough with a colleague to see Tim present last September at the Global Iridium Partner Conference. And I can assure you it's going to be a really exciting and interesting presentation today. Joining us on the call, as always, is Mr. Wade Evans. Wade is our Product, Project and Solutions Manager for our aviation and digital portfolios. So stick with us for the next 45 minutes. We're following a consistent format and template that we have been previously, but today's focus is around on integrating your assets into the Star2M network and realising the full benefit of this system. For those that would like to view today's speakers, simply up under the View Options tab at the top of your screen, you're able to then toggle and enable if you'd like to see each of us. And finally, feel free to ask any questions right throughout the webinar. If there's something that piques your interest, just capture that in the Q&A box. We'll spend then a little bit of time at the conclusion at the back end of today's session where we'll walk through those questions and provide answers to all that you may be wanting to find out further. Just a brief introduction of who and what is Star2M. Well, Star2M Proprietary Limited is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Sealight group of companies. So what is it? In short, it's a dedicated asset management enterprise software solution encompassing web portal and mobile app. It's an agnostic system, it's an open source system, and we're going to walk and talk through that today. But what's incredibly important for our business and for each of you in terms of our customers, partners and stakeholders is that it is a dedicated aids to navigation portal, platform and mobile app solution. So that's what's key there, building upon whether you be an aviation customer of our business or a marine customer of our business. Star2M is that digital portal platform that can help connect all of your fixed distributed assets up and through either the Iridium network or a Sealight network, and then be able to then control, monitor and better manage your data in your network and system. For those not familiar, Star2M represents satellite to machine communication or machine to machine monitoring control. And as it going to market today, we're really proud. In a little over 12 months, we've now got 85 active subscribers in the platform and many others that are currently under trial and experiencing the portal for the first time. And we're currently managing somewhere in the vicinity of the tick over 1,500 active assets that are in the tool. And what's really exciting and critical there is the number of the Iridium modules and the satellite connected devices continues to grow month on month. A short overview of the system is really a couple of key elements. First and foremost is about the hardware. And so whether you're a marine or an aviation customer, it's about getting connected. And Tim is on today's call to really bring to life Iridium Satellite Communications, the world's only true global satellite communication company. And the backstory to that, as I've previously narrated, is that we undertook analysis of the market. We realised that there was a number of challenges around maintaining network footprint, technology roadmap of the cellular telemetry piece. And so we'd identified satellite as being absolutely best in class and first class for our business and for our customers. And so satellite telemetry is absolutely the way to go. We also support the cellular and we also support IoT around the Internet of Things. We do recognise that some markets, some applications might be exploring other complementary technologies. And so the beauty of Star2M is that it is open source. So once you've got your hardware and you're connected, the second piece then is around the software. And that is essentially the Star2M license or the Star2M subscription. It's a self-contained platform utilising one or all of the feature sets, be that asset management, asset monitoring, asset control, or asset maintenance. And if we build upon the last couple of modules where we've drilled into asset management, and then in the last session at webinar number 3, we spoke at length around asset maintenance. The key there is that, again, users are free to use as little or as much of the system as it suits their business needs. And then finally, this is where we're going to talk today in terms of the user and business-centric nature of the platform. It's configurable down to any given asset base or asset size. It's really important for our business is that it is agnostic. So it doesn't matter whether you're using an Avlight or a Sealight fixture in your network. You might be using a third party. You might have existing fixtures and assets. It's entirely agnostic in terms of being able to connect to those devices and then better manage the asset network. And then finally, lying at the heart of our philosophy and architecture is this open source API, and Wade's going to speak to that a little later on. In terms of the market and what we see, what we hear, it's all about the system and the integration. We recognise the system needs are significant more than ever now in this world of the digital world and the digital space. We continue to see new apps, new technologies emerging, but what remains absolutely critical is the need for reliability. That's one of the absolute core reasons why Iridium is our key telemetry partner, because it's all about reliability of performance, and because what's important is the safety critical nature of the market and the volume of usage with and through your own operations, your own systems, so on and so forth. Secondly, it's about data availability and resolution. And to that, I would add security. And we're going to touch on that at length today when Wade speaks. And then finally, it is about being able to interpret that technology curve and being able to maintain and keep pace. And so when I talked about some of those practical limitations of cellular that we and you may have experienced over the last 13, 14 years that we've been offering our proprietary cellular solution, being able to scale and keep up with technology is critically important, for we do recognise the very nature of our industry being remote, safety critical, and certainly being deployed into some fairly challenging environments. It's absolutely critical that what is selected, what is invested, what is integrated into your networks absolutely is state-of-the-art and maintaining the latest technology with the most minimal disruption to service and networks. And then the second piece that builds upon the system is about integration. So we can help with that, but our vision or our philosophy is that this can be a standalone system or a system of systems, and we can certainly work with each of you, our partners or our end user customers, to help you on that configuration integration journey. It's about open data, and then the key is about being able to mesh with what is existing and current today in your system, depending on what you're using, and then being able to evolve and then integrate Star2M. For we have many, many case studies from Port of Melbourne Corporation or New South Wales Roads and Maritime or Vic Regional Channels, right the way across to the United States Coast Guard. We recognise you have existing systems. They are modern or legacy, but the investment in those is about being able to integrate Star2M and realise the benefit of what is a dedicated aid to navigation system for your aviation or marine assets and deployed units and fixtures out in the field, but being able to mesh that with what you currently got and not having to chop and change. So we can absolutely help you in that journey. That's enough from me, and I'd now like to hand over to Tim, who's now going to give a really strong and detailed overview of Iridium. Over to you, Tim.
Thanks, Michael, and good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks to the Sealight team for the welcome and the invitation today. As Michael said, my name's Tim Last. I'm responsible for a couple of areas of Iridium's business, the IoT business, which part of the product portfolio is the products that Sealight have integrated into their solutions. I'm also responsible for Iridium's aviation business, and I'll touch on those two aspects a little bit today in this presentation. Let me find the controls, move my slides on. Here we go. Quick introduction to Iridium. I don't know if any of you have worked with Iridium before in other solutions, markets, areas. We're a US public company. We're headquartered in Virginia on the East Coast of the US. We've been in business for over 20 years now. And you can see some of the metrics here. A couple of things to point out. We go to market through a wide range of technology partners. Iridium focuses on the core technology, both at the device as well as the network end, and I'll speak to that in a moment. But what really is important for us is the technology partnerships that we have that then integrate Iridium's technical solution and satellite communications into the various different vertical market solutions around the world. And we're really pleased that Sealight is a key partner in the area of maritime domain awareness and the kinds of solutions that it brings to you, their customers. We recently announced our Q3 results. We're now serving over 1.3 million customers around the world, discrete connections on our network, and I'll show you a little bit about where they are and talk a bit about what those customers do on our network. Just in terms of the way that we're organized, I mentioned at the beginning, I'm responsible for actually two of these blocks that you see here. These are the vertical markets that Iridium serves. IoT encompasses all sorts of different industries. Fundamentally, it's about machine-to-machine communication, whether that be in the oil and gas sector, on land, on the ocean, personal safety solutions, fleet management, etc. I'm also responsible for aviation, and I'll talk in more detail about that later. Two other commercial markets we serve are maritime. We've been a provider in the maritime space for a long time, and we serve all the different vertical markets in maritime, from large commercial shipping through fishing, research, leisure, workboats, and offshore technologies. Our longest serving business is in land mobile. Iridium was created originally back in the late 1990s, primarily as a satellite phone business. And that business has continued to evolve, and we are the #1 provider of voice communications over satellite today to many markets around the world. The last piece I want to highlight is our government business. We have, in the last year or so, secured a 7-year, $700 million contract with the US government. So that's our anchor government business. It provides all sorts of communication to the US government, both on the military defense side as well as across various civil organizations there. But we also serve many foreign military and governmental organizations. So altogether, that's Iridium's business. Lots of different customer solutions there, but hopefully that gives you a quick idea of what we do as a company. Bit about the network, bit about the technology. Some of you may be familiar with satellite, but one thing I wanted to point out right at the start is Iridium truly is a very unique network. We are the only company that provides completely fully global communications today. As you can see from the network sort of topology there, the graphic, our network is comprised of 6 orbital planes with 11 satellites in each plane. Those orbit the Earth. They go from north to south and back again in about 100 minutes. And that provides 100% communication no matter where you are on the Earth. So you build a product, you buy a Sealight device, for example, you can literally put that anywhere on the planet and you will get substantially the same high quality real-time communication no matter where you are. We're also one of the few companies that went to the trouble of actually putting spare satellites in orbit right from day one. That's really critical because, as you can imagine, it's pretty tough to get back into space and replace something if something goes wrong. So having ready-made spares available allows us to mitigate against potential future changes that might happen in the network, and allows us to ensure that that network remains robust in terms of uptime and availability. The network is low Earth orbit. There's a lot of news going on at the moment about satellites and space, lots of good, exciting things happening. Low Earth orbit really is just like the neighborhood, if you like. It's the area of space where our satellites are, about 500 miles up. That means they're orbiting the Earth pretty fast at about 17,000 miles per hour. But it also means that the signal that comes from those satellites is actually quite strong. It also means that the latency to those satellites is much shorter than medium or high orbit geostationary satellites. That all combined together means you get the best quality of service and the best experience when using the network. Two last things. It's an L-band network. L-band is the frequency spectrum. It's a very, very valuable part of the spectrum. Most of the L-band spectrum was allocated decades ago. Iridium is lucky enough to have dedicated spectrum around the world. It's valuable because it's really robust. It's robust against weather events. and it's a very reliable signal. So that means we can provide a reliable service. And the last point on this chart is another very unique feature. Despite all of the new satellite constellations that are currently being talked about and being launched, Iridium is still today the only commercial satellite network with crosslinks between its satellites. That means that we provide truly real-time low latency service. If you're communicating from Australia to our gateway in the US, that data, that voice call is going to bounce between those satellites in real time and route just like an IP network does on land, and you're going to get the best quality of service. So that's the network. A little bit about where we have network operations, just really quickly. Our main commercial gateway is in Virginia, on the east coast of the US. We also have, our gateway is in Tempe, Arizona. Our network operations center is in Virginia. That's where we manage the satellites. The gateway is actually where all of the traffic from our network is brought down to the earth, delivered either to the internet, to our customers, to the PSTN, and those sorts of onward communication points. We also have a number of facilities around the world. You can see some in high northern latitudes, as well as one down in Punta Arenas in Chile. These are locations for both telemetry, command and control, as well as to be able to bring down traffic from our network and essentially load share or load shed as we need to. The last thing to point out is we do have a commercial gateway in Russia. That's a regulatory requirement by the Russian government. So we're able to provide service literally all over the planet and in the vast majority of countries. Well, what is the actual experience that our customers have, and where do they use us? This is a quick snapshot actually of one of my customers. I'm not going to tell you who. They're a land-based industrial company, and they put Iridium Communications on industrial vehicles. And as you can see, based on this snapshot of locations, they're literally using us all over the planet. This particular customer has vehicles deployed now in over 160 countries around the world. And you can see a quick snapshot of where those vehicles are reporting from: telemetry, M2M type services. There's a similar picture in the maritime space and with aviation customers as well. If I put everything on here that we do, you probably wouldn't see the map underneath it. So just gives you a quick idea of how Iridium can serve every location globally. A little bit about a couple of particular vertical markets, because I think two of our vertical markets have got particular application and are relevant to the conversation with Sealight, Avlight, and the services that they provide. The first is maritime. Iridium has a very strong, robust maritime business. We serve all of those markets, particular commercial verticals you can see on the left. We provide broadband services on commercial shipping, cargo, tankers, bulk carriers. We provide lower data rate services for commercial fishing and workboats. We also provide M2M services for things like buoys, gliders, floats, rigs, and offshore construction projects. On the right-hand side, you see some of the particular sort of capabilities. Excuse me, managed to move the slides there without intending to. Some of the capabilities that are particularly relevant in the maritime space. That L-band spectrum that I talked about, very reliable in adverse weather conditions. The truly global coverage is obviously really important, particularly as the maritime and shipping lanes become more connected around the world. It's important that you can assure connectivity regardless of where you are. And then finally, IoT, which is a new emerging area in the maritime space. Iridium is one of the leaders in providing IoT solutions to various markets today in the maritime space. A couple of quick points to make on this one. GMDSS. Iridium today is one of only 2 companies in the world approved by the IMO for the Maritime Distress and Safety Service. We received that in the last year or so. We're in the process of finishing our beta, and deployments will start next year. That's the first time in over 50 years that there's been an alternative choice for GMDSS solutions in the maritime space. It also is a good validation of the robustness, the reliability of Iridium's system. If it's going to be used for maritime distress on SOLAS class vessels it has to be absolutely bulletproof. And we've proven that with the IMO over the last year or two. We're also one of the leaders in VMS, electronic catch reporting, surveillance systems, as well as search and rescue applications using two-way communications, particularly in fishing and in fisheries management. And the last one is maritime domain awareness. We have a number of customers that integrate us into a variety of systems to really be able to inform nation states, port authorities around the world about what's going in their territories. One of the largest programs that's underway at the moment is with the US government. They have a division called DARPA within the US Department of Defense that's actually deploying tens of thousands of Iridium-enabled buoys around the coast of California, and then we'll be doing so around the rest of the US as they endeavor to build out their domain awareness platform. Second market, really quickly, aviation. It's the other part of my business. Iridium has been serving aviation almost since day one when the network was launched. Just to point out a couple of things here. Iridium is really focused on the critical communications need of the aviation industry. You won't find Iridium in the back of commercial aircraft providing cheap Wi-Fi for people watching Netflix, for example, but you will find us in the cockpit. You'll find us in the cockpit providing critical communications, air traffic communications, acronyms like FANS and ATN and ATS Safety Voice. If you work in the aviation space, you probably know these. This means that Iridium's network is relied upon for really critical communications, basically keeping operations and the safety of aircraft in flight. We're also used across other markets like business aviation, general aviation, and even now in the emerging sectors like UAV. Again, on the right-hand side, some of the things that our technology enables in aviation. Small and cost-effective antenna technology doesn't sound terribly sexy, but in fact, that L-band, which is so critical for the reliability, is also really good to give very small, very cost-effective, but very reliable solutions. That means your ROI is going to be better because your solution is going to be cheaper to deploy and cheaper to maintain. Also, obviously very reliable in adverse weather conditions, which is great, and global coverage again. These are really critical to our aviation customers. This is my last slide, just a really quick snapshot of Iridium's product portfolio, just to give you an idea. We really focus on two types of product go-to-market. On the right-hand side, you can see various finished products. The ones at the top are largely Iridium devices, products that we build and provide to our customers and partners. On the bottom right-hand side, those are mainly maritime products that some of our key critical manufacturing partners provide. Thales, Cobham, Intellian, these are known names in the maritime industry, and they build really robust and rugged solutions in maritime. On the left, you see the enabling technologies. These are the modems or transceivers. And this is really important because this is where we manage to provide the basis for many of our customers to innovate and create their solutions. Sealight and the team have integrated several of these into their solutions, and we expect to continue to work with them to deliver reliable solutions into the future. So with that, I'm going to hand back to Michael and the team, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Tim. We'll now introduce Wade Evans.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Tim. So as Tim elaborated on Iridium and Mike mentioned earlier, Iridium is really a critical part of our Star2M platform, and we utilize Iridium for really significant value add within the Star2M platform. Following that theme through, Star2M can really form a critical component of a larger software network or a larger software ecosystem to allow you to transfer data through that ecosystem, to be able to consolidate that information, and really to be able to provide a more core component to an overarching software network. We do it in a couple of different ways, and I'll work through that integration methodology and how we go about integrating Star2M in the next couple of slides. So first and foremost, we utilize a REST API. That REST API is really the core of how we integrate the Star2M platform to external systems. It allows us to do two-way integration and allows us to provide that mechanism for applications to consume data from the Star2M platform, but also provide data into the Star2M platform. That REST API has complete access into the Star2M database backend. Obviously, it's authenticated access and it's linked to specific accounts, but it has direct access into that database. What that means is that you're able to integrate multiple systems to utilize that single database and share that information throughout the network. As Mike mentioned previously, Star2M can function as a system of systems. It doesn't have to be the front-end user interface that you use, and that allows you to really be able to integrate those systems together and gives that additional value add for Star2M. When utilizing the API, you can pull a lot of information out of the database. Ultimately, any data that's available within the Star2M platform can then be shared throughout the software network. Similar information or specific example information is around, say, asset data, the update log information, alarms, asset ID information. So if we think about that specifically, you can have a monitored asset that has electrical parameters on it, charge voltages, battery voltages. It has alarm conditions associated with it. But you've also got specific static values as well, and static parameters that can be pulled into other systems. That might be maintenance information, specific geolocation information as well, and also other specific parameters that could be user defined. So you can generate all that in Star2M and then feed that information into a wider network. We utilize an API, which means we use non-user based authentication by generation of an API key. Obviously, that API key has an associated password with it, but when we say non-user based, it's pretty standard for API integrations, but it means that you can use that key rather than a specific user who may or may not be within the organization and has specific user credentials that are associated with them. Instead, you have an API key that allows this external system to access the database. So now we'll work through a little bit more of a detailed look into how we would use the API to integrate a Star2M into a larger ecosystem. So Star2M can function as the core of the overarching operational software ecosystem without needing to be that front-end user interface, like I mentioned before. And that fully integrated REST API allows for that seamless data transfer, data updates, and data consolidation across the software network. This means that it really does add that value. And on the right here, I've got an example integration of how we would utilize Star2M in one of these API-based integration methodologies. So I'll work through this in detail. So if we start down the bottom, for example, we'll start with Star2M itself. So over on the right, you can see you've got remotely monitored assets there. You've got the Iridium network or GSM-related networks. That feeds information into the Star2M database or the Star2M platform, which we've shown here as the web portal. And that consolidates all that information together to allow you to really capture that information in a single location. From that Star2M web portal, you're then able to utilize the API. That API can then integrate into multiple subsystems. So in this example, we've got the existing asset maintenance system, which allows maintainer access into it. So this might be an existing maintenance system that you have within your operational business unit. That might be the interface that a maintainer uses to generate their maintenance reports, that a maintainer uses to generate any sort of maintenance scheduling. And we can utilize that and then using the API, pass that information back up to Star2M. We could also integrate to an existing asset monitoring system. That might be an existing system that you're utilizing to capture various wide monitoring points or various wide monitoring systems that can then also be consolidated back into the Star2M platform. And then finally, you might have a third-party software platform. This might be a modeling platform. For example, we've done some very specific integrations which utilize all the asset data and all that monitored data that we have from satellite-enabled devices can then be fed via Star2M into this modeling platform. That can then be accessed by operators to really make informed operational decisions based on that modeling information. That allows all the hard data to be stored within Star2M, or the hard asset information, but then the modeling platform can pull that asset information, do what it does best, which is generate those specific models, and then provide that information across to the operator. So ultimately, what this means is that users, maintainers, operators within the system can still utilize their existing interfaces, still utilize what they know best, and you can still utilize existing business processes, existing user methodologies without having to completely restructure your organization or restructure your processes. So once all that information is consolidated, you can then feed it up the chain into an overarching financial system or some overarching asset management system. So on a lot of the integrations that we've worked with, that overarching system could be something like a Maximo or a Tech1, where you're pulling all that lower level information, consolidating it together, and then pushing it up to that higher level system, which is used to make financial decisions, analytical decisions on the business health. So we'll now do a bit of a demonstration. We'll jump into the portal itself, as well as look at the API itself as well. Great. So here's the portal. You may be familiar with this, or you should be familiar with this. And when you log in, you get directly taken to the dashboard here. So now when we talk about doing an API integration, ultimately, you want to get into the account management section of the platform. Go down here to account management. That will take you to the account management page. And the section we're really looking for here is the generate API key system. So you click generate API key, that'll generate a unique API identifier. You nominate a password in this location. Obviously it'll tell you what strength it is. And then it allows you to generate that specific API key, which is used to authenticate with Star2M on an ongoing basis by an external system. So that's just the start of it. That's how you authenticate and generate an API key. And then you need to be able to utilize the API itself to do the various information transfers and the various data consolidation activities. So if we jump over to the API, you can access this by navigating to api.star2m.com. And when you navigate to that page, you'll be presented with this breakdown of the API itself. Up on the top right here is really important. We've got version 1 and version 2 of the API. Version 1 is our legacy version of the API, which is only used to support some existing integrations. So ultimately, if you're doing a new integration, you really want to be looking at version 2 of the API. When we look at version 2, you're presented with a list of functions. So anyone who's done any API integrations will be familiar with this methodology. And if you're not, there's a way to work through it. And it's a relatively straightforward process. But ultimately, you're presented with a list of functions here. There's quite a detailed list here, which is why version 2.0 is the one to use. It's got enhanced functionality, and it allows you to pull information from the database or put it into the database. So if we pick an example function here, for example, which is ops data. So this is a function within our API that allows you to nominate an ID. So you might have asset ID 2 within a specific account, and then it will return specific information based on that query. So by executing that command and executing that query through your through any connector that utilizes the API, it will then return your whole information. This is what we would use to gather any dynamic information presented on an asset. That might be the geolocation, for example, battery voltages, charge voltages, flash codes, any alarm states will all be presented by this function. And when you execute this command, you'll then be presented with all of these individual tags that are shown in the schema and the values associated with them. As you can see, there's a lot of functions. There's a lot of information you can gain out of the system and write to the system. Some of the really interesting integrations you can do with this API, you can post maintenance reports, for example, and you can also send control commands. So when we get down to the control capabilities within Star2M that we've covered in previous webinars, you're actually able to set things like flash codes, operational modes, intensities, GPS modes, and then sync offsets. All those available control inputs can then be pushed from an external system and then executed on the actual remote monitored assets on the end of the line. So that's the API overview. We'll just jump back to the presentation. Fantastic. So once we start talking integration within systems of systems or a larger system architecture, you're going to be involved with the IT integrators and IT departments. And the first thing they're going to ask is really around security and reliability. This obviously goes back to our point as to why we use Iridium. Security and reliability is absolutely core to Star2M and how we implement the Star2M platform. So first and foremost, security is always up front, and we utilized full encryption using AES 256 encryption, as well as industry best practices. We've got no backdoors into Star2M. That means that even if we're asked by a user to access the information, we can't unless they provide us the appropriate authentication and the appropriate user credentials. We're also aligned with the GDPR. That's obviously around privacy, data retention and privacy. We're aligned to that to maintain our users' integrity and that data integrity as well. We target ISO 27001 compliance. This informs everything we do, how we build our infrastructure, how we retain data, how we handle data, and how we handle the database itself. And that's obviously key and critical, and you'll see that throughout Star2M, that we really try to align to that ISO compliance. So after security, the next question is always around reliability. This is a key point for Iridium and a key point for Star2M. We're hosted with Microsoft Azure, which is really a market-leading hosting platform. We have redundant platform infrastructure, which means we don't have any single point within our infrastructure that can fail and completely bring down the system. We've always got backup paths and backup methodologies and backup infrastructure to ensure that we're always able to deliver that high uptime and high availability. We have a high integrity data backup, which means there's no way we're going to lose information. And obviously the system is built around maintaining that data integrity. Then finally, we have a 99.9% uptime, which is monitored, measured, mapped, and constantly tracked to ensure that we're hitting that service requirement. So that's the end of the deep dive and the end of the presentation. Now what's coming next is really around Star2M 2.0. That's coming in late 2020. It's going to contain a couple of different updates. First and foremost is going to be around geographical information updates. That's an enhanced mapping engine that allows us to really accelerate how we present information, asset information, and monitoring information on that geographic overlay. And then finally, that'll be supported through roles and associations, which allows us to really enhance our user functionality. It means you can allocate which users can access which parts of an account, what users can access which asset groups, which asset, specific assets themselves, and allows you to designate what they're allowed to do within the system. Allows you to control your organization, your business processes, and align Star2M with that standard convention. There's always opportunities for partners and resellers to sell Star2M. Just get in contact with your local Star2M representative. And then finally, we've got a range of new products that are entering the market to enable us to existing assets as well as connecting new assets into Star2M. So that range includes everything from our universal gateway, which is really our protocol hub, our protocol aggregator that's coming to the market shortly, as well as standalone SATCOM opportunities and standalone SATCOM products as well. I'll hand back to Mike just to run our Q&A.
Thank you, Wade, and a big thanks to Tim again. It's a couple of key takeaways for mine is really, it's not sexy, but it's got teeth. And the critical thing here is around trust and reliability. And for those reasons that have been mentioned, we wanted, it's one of the reasons why we held back the Iridium presentation towards the back end of this particular webinar series, because it's so critical that customers, as they're gaining knowledge and insight into the tool and the platform, for many it's completely new. You know, it's a new method of operation into being able to maintain digital records versus traditional paper-based records. What lies at the heart of the Star2M business is around trust, and what speaks to trust is a reliability of data, reliability of network, and also the fact that, you know, the data is fully encrypted. So when Wade says that there's no back door, I've said this numerous times now to customers and partners. Respectfully, if an asset is deleted, we fully comply with all of the current data legislation, and that data is expunged. There is no catch or save all. The good news though is we're here to help, and so we've got a team of people from Wade, Priyanka, who you've seen on previous webinars, Yamon Chambers, that some of you might be familiar with as long-term Sea-Lot or Av-Lite customers. We've got a whole team that's ready to support each of our customers, be that channel partners or end users, and we can assist with that design, that integration, that configuration, that customer success journey. We'll now just wrap up the formal proceedings today, and we've just got a couple of questions. This is a coverage-related question. Tim, does Iridium provide satellite coverage down in the South Pole, down in the Antarctic region?
Yes, when I said 100% coverage, I really did genuinely mean everywhere. So we absolutely provide coverage at both the North as well as the South Poles. So obviously satellite and L-band is a line of sight technology. So, you know, you do need to have a view of the sky at some point in order to be able to connect to the satellite. But absolutely, you could deploy this in Sydney Harbour or in the Antarctic and you'd get the same service level from us. Yeah,
thank you, Tim. The next question, this is a really important one. This customer has a number of marine aids to navigation using Iridium, And the question is, are we able to change the reporting time? That's a question for Wade.
Yeah, so I assume they mean in terms of when it reports, in terms of its cycle. And that's all designated by firmware within the fixture itself. So it's not something that's dynamic. You can't specifically choose when it's reported. But we are looking to provide additional clarity around the reporting times themselves to be localized within the local reporting. So currently everything's aligned to UTC, but it can be updated to be aligned with local timings, which is something that we're looking for in the next development process.
Yeah, thank you, Wade. And a follow-on question from that is, what are the current reporting frequencies? We've covered that in a previous webinar, but again, just a quick summary, Wade, of the data plans that we're back to back with Iridium, and just a quick summary of that reporting frequency through monitoring and control.
Yeah, so it all depends on obviously the SATCOM package that you pick. You can have basic or advanced one-way, basic or advanced two-way. So when it comes to, say, a basic one-way package, which is a very traditional application, it's just a once-a-day report. It's a daily message designed just to provide that critical information. Now, if you go into an advanced one-way package, we're talking about tracking information, geolocation information, and that actually produces 6 reports per day. You have the primary daily reports, but then on top of that, you have additional geolocation reports, which are designed for enhanced tracking. You then move on to the two-way packages, and they kind of mimic and align very similarly with the one-way, except now you can generate control messages as well. So in terms of reporting, if you've got the basic two-way package, you're talking about a daily message that allows you to get that daily report information, but it allows you to also send control messages once a day as well, which is batched and aggregated based on every parameter you change across that cycle. And then when you move on to two-way advanced, you end up with basically the burger with the lot, which is all the enhanced reports. You end up with reports every 12 hours, as well as the additional geolocation drops. And then you're allowed to send control messages as often and as frequent as you need to.
Thank you, Wade. Just in terms of the latency on those control messages in the advanced two-way, is that real time?
Correct. It's near real time. It's obviously not real time in terms of the technicality around that term. That implies some really high performance criteria, but it's near real time. We don't buffer it. It gets sent across the network as soon as the control message is executed. Yeah,
thank you, Wade. The next question, this is a good question. Do I need an IT specialist to integrate the API key settings into my current asset management system? Can Star2M assist me and my company with this?
Yeah, so great question. IT specialists are utilized for API integrations. You need a connector ultimately if you're talking about multiple external systems talking into Star2M. It obviously all depends on how complex the organization is and how complex the integration is. If you've got multiple systems you want to talk into, you may need that level of support, but we can always assist. It's always something that we're able to provide and assist with as well, building those software connectors. And when I talk about software connectors, it's ultimately a script or a program that allows data to be pushed and pulled through that software network as required. So it needs to be built, but yeah, ultimately it all depends on complexity and whether or not you need to engage those specialists that Star2M, and we're always here to help.
Yeah, and I guess just to follow on from that as a comment, Wade, Port of Melbourne Corporation, they're using a third-party, it's a maritime piece of software that's assisting the pilots and the harbour master with their port operations through the vessel traffic management.
Yep.
And it was only a matter of a couple of hours just with our IT team working with that software vendor's IT team. We're able to make that connection, that handshake in the background very seamlessly. And to this day, I can share with those with a keen enthusiasm for marine, Port of Melbourne are using both the system to monitor their marine lanterns on their fixed piles and some of their floating aids, but then secondly, some other users, be that the pilots and the harbour master, are able to view the marine lantern data on this other third-party system. So it's It's all possible, it's all viable. And I guess the message is don't be put off by the terminology or the technology. There will be people in your own organisation, and if you need that support, we are here to help. The next question is there any minimum allowable radius we can set for the geofence? What about the accuracy in terms of Iridium capability? So I might invite Tim just to speak to the Iridium piece, because you are the expert. And then secondly, Wade, you could talk to how we configure that using the portal and our methodology for managing what we might call a geofence or a watch circle, depending on your terminology.
Yeah, so just on the Iridium piece, I mean, I'm assuming, Michael, most of your devices will have a GPS installed anyway as part of the solution, correct? Yeah,
that's absolutely correct, Tim.
I mean, in that sense, we are effectively a conduit. We're a data comm pipe for your application, so it'll be as accurate, obviously, as the GPS message that is coming over that. Iridium's network does have its own sort of inbuilt location capability, because we have to know where our devices are in the world. We don't rely on our customers' GPS to be able to do that. In order to reach out and communicate and send and receive messages, we have to know within a reasonable level of accuracy, but it's not GPS like. We have to know within, you know, probably a kilometer or two, not within, you know, 5 or 10 meters.
Yeah.
So that's on our side. Obviously, you can answer the accuracy question for Sealight.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where Wade can speak to this now, please, Wade.
Yeah, so we obviously supplement the Iridium information with their own GPS information as well, built into our products. So ultimately, when it comes down to what is the minimum radius you want to use, our recommendation is no less than a radius of 25 meters. And that's just based on the accuracy of the GPS messaging that we have. If you make it any smaller than that, it's prone to errors, or can build errors into that reporting mechanism. So based on all of our integration and all of our testing, we've said a radius of about 25 meters is as small as you should go in order to provide accurate GPS coordinates without spurious alarms.
Yeah, thank you, Wade. I don't think we've got any further questions at this juncture. Yeah, so we've got no open questions at this time. I would now just like to, when I've got control back, thank you, Mace. We'll just do a short wrap up. So I just wanted to, first of all, extend a really big thanks to Tim and all the team at Iridium that supports Tim, but particularly Tim for staying up late into his evening on the east coast of the United States. A really warm thanks, Tim, for your contribution. Secondly, as always, to Wade and also Mason Harbour, who sits in the console and makes these things possible. I would like to invite all of our participants today just to take part in a short 60-second survey at the conclusion. That's really important in terms of our feedback, to know if we're on message and what we can alter or change for future sessions and future webinars. And then I'd like to also just let you know that we are planning the next in the series. That might be tied into conjunction with some of the next release feature functionality. So until then, it's a very warm thank you to all of you for taking time out of your days, and wherever you might be. Until next time, see you again. Thank you.
Thank you.